Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and before I get into today's video, I just want to say some words about what's currently going on in the country. As many of you know, George Floyd was murdered by police in Minneapolis, and it is just one of a long string of police killing African Americans in the United States. Breonna Taylor, I believe, was the month before, and it's so many names that, you know, it's hard to look at the list when you do see it of African Americans whose lives have been lost because you have police officers who are not doing their jobs correctly. Their motto, what they tell us, is that they're there to protect and serve. And the truth of the matter is that there's been very little of that for the African American community in the United States. For many decades, many years since their inception, cops have always been at odds with the African American community. When we've asked for justice, a lot of times cops turned their eyes away when we did ask them to fulfill their duties, when it came down to it. And sometimes they're complicit in the injustices that have been visited upon the African American communities. Is what happened to George Floyd surprising? To me, no. It's just another injustice in the long line of injustices that have been happening to black men and women in the United States since we were brought here as slaves 400 years ago. And it's sad to see that we're still coming back and dealing with the same things all these years later. I mean, part of you wants to be hopeful that there has been changes in society, and there have been some, but it's not enough. It's not enough until this doesn't happen anymore, whether it be to an African American, Hispanic American, a white person. Like, this shouldn't happen to anyone at all. And then the response of the police to the protesters, who a lot of them, majority of them, I'll say 99% of them, peacefully protesting, and the police their methods have been completely uncalled for. I've seen video after video after video of protesters who are not doing anything illegal being tear gassed, being beat bloody, being tossed to the ground, beat up, and it's just completely uncalled for, and it's a travesty, to be honest. And the travesty beyond all travesties is that they feel comfortable enough to do this on camera in front of the world and feel they can get away with it. You had 57 cops resign in Buffalo, not because they were against what was going on in their own department, but in support of the two guys that pushed the elderly man to the ground. And when they're called out on it, all they do is close ranks, and there's no accountability. We're seeing some now, but look how many people had to protest in order to get some accountability. Look how many days of protesting and everything that's happened for these people to be held accountable. And it's just completely wrong, but not surprising with the way the United States has dealt with this. The White House response, not surprising. 101 years ago, when black people were being killed in their own neighborhoods, the White House was quiet then, and I would say the response from the White House this time has been even worse. And so it's not surprising. You see these same threads throughout American history. As someone who likes history, you can't study African American history without seeing the broken and dead black bodies along the way. Whether it be in some small rural town in the south, whether it be in the urban city in the north, whether a person committed a crime or not, you weren't worthy of due process. You were considered less than a human being. People would take pictures of you after they committed the atrocities that they committed, after they hung you from trees, after they set your body on fire, after they tied you to a car and dragged you through the streets, put your picture on a postcard and celebrated the fact that they had killed another black person. Because at the end of the day, two people, African Americans aren't human. They're less than human. And so they can do all of that and still go and grab lunch afterwards, or go to church afterwards, or plan to lynch someone around their church services, because at the end of the day, you aren't human. You aren't worth anything to them. And when African Americans saw what that cop did to George Floyd on that video, it wasn't anything new to us. We knew that, but it was simply just a reminder that is what we are to some people. That we are less than human and undeserving of the same respect and dignity that they expect for themselves. You know, I've gotten almost 500 new subscribers to this channel, and it's with mixed feelings that I welcome you here, because it took someone dying for me to see the huge spike in subscribers. So it's hard to even celebrate the fact that I've hit 2,500 subscribers. You know, at any time, and not just in the present, but going back in the past, that could be me. That black man that's talked about in these stories that you hear about, that's being killed either on a slave plantation because he didn't pick cotton fast enough, or had the audacity to run away for his freedom, or in the Reconstruction era because he had the audacity to try to vote or try to voice his political opinion, or in the Jim Crow era because perhaps I was doing a little bit too well than other white Americans around me, and I'd be put in my place. I could easily be me in the Civil Rights era, trying to advance the cause of my people, or it could be me now, just walking down the street and pulled over by the, stopped by the wrong cop because I'm supposedly in the wrong neighborhood. I don't live in fear, but I do. It's the reality that I live with. And unfortunately, I think it's a reality that my kids are going to have to live with. And, if they decide to have kids, with the way things are, I'm kind of hopeful, but in some ways, like, legislation can only go so far, right? Hearts and minds have to change. And until hearts and minds change, we're going to be right back here again in a couple months, a couple years. We'll be right back here again talking about this again. I'll have another spike in subscribers, and nothing will really have changed. Since all of this has happened, other black booktubers on Booktube have also experienced spikes in their subscribers too. Many of them, because as a black man, I'm very rare in this community. There are only very few of us, and so most of them are black women, and a lot of them have been putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort. They have been putting in, they do a lot to make sure that their channels, their videos are great, the best they can possibly be, versus me, who basically sits down in front of his phone, does some jump cuts, and uploads the video. They go above and beyond what's needed to have a video, and many of them experience less growth than I do. One been on Booktube for 6 years and looked at her subscriber numbers, and I have half of what she has, and I've only been here for 2 years. My watch later, because I'm going through these videos slowly as I have time, is filled with black woman after black woman, black booktuber, talking about their experience on Booktube and not feeling welcomed, feeling left out, feeling dismissed, and not getting the engagement that they see some of their fellow white booktubers getting. But now, with everything going on, it's certainly vogue for people to subscribe to them, and now they're seeing huge spikes in subscribers, some in the thousands. So where were you before? Did you not take the effort to go look at their channels? What suddenly changed? Why now? Is it because it's the more popular thing to do? Is it because you feel guilty? Whatever your reasons were for subscribing to them, engage with their content. Support them, not just now while it's popular, but going forward. I personally, my channel is dedicated to topics that are not the most popular on Booktube. So to be honest, any growth that I experience is actually more than what I expect. But for them, who I see doing a lot of the same things that their fellow white booktubers are getting and not getting the same or similar support, you know, it hurts. Looking at a lot of those videos, it hurts. And I encourage you to go look at those videos to see what their experiences are like, to see what their concerns are like, because they weren't listened to before this, and hopefully they're listened to now. So definitely go not just subscribe to them, because if you simply subscribe and don't do anything, don't at least like the video or comment, YouTube takes that into account. This person has 10,000 followers, only 100 actually, like, you know, engage with the video, won't promote this as much as someone who has like maybe 500 but has 400 and some odd, like, you know, likes, comments, shares, stuff like that. So interact with them. I will be doing the same as well. I'll be carving out some time to look at their videos, to comment and stuff. But take this time also to educate yourselves. Many of you are for the first time picking up a book about race, and I think that's ridiculous. I have picked up books on feminists, about feminism, books about Jews, books about other countries, books that do not relatively either reflect my experience, are written by people who look like me, or issues that I have to deal with. Like a lot of issues that were in the book Feminicity, I'm never gonna have to deal with in my life because I'm not a woman. However, I was willing to go and open up and read those books. Many of you are readers, and you have a very small window, or you keep yourself to just one small slither of what you could possibly be reading. You live in a country where race is a very big issue, so big that it dominates the news cycle, and yet many of you have not engaged in that beyond that, the news cycle, and have no idea of how we got here, don't know the history behind it, don't know what's happening today. Like, this is probably shocking for some of you. It's not shocking for people in the Black community who experience it. It's a daily reality. So, and for some of you, the only time you do engage in these topics is when you're reading like The Hate You Give or Dear Martin, which is fine if you want to read fiction about this stuff, but George Floyd was a real person. Breonna Taylor was a real person. And those issues are real. If you only engage with, and I said this on Twitter, if you only engage in these issues when in fiction, then it will only ever be that to you, fictional. And then when something like this happens, you're like, well, what do I do? How do I, you don't know what to do. You idolize people who stand up to oppression in fiction, but yet when you have a chance to do it in real life, you're like a deer in the headlights, and you either don't do anything at all, or worse, you speak out against the people fighting against oppression, and don't see the irony in it at all. There have been some book companies that have shown that these Black Lives Matter Black Lives Matter and Black creators don't matter to them, that they're not family friendly book outlet. There have been some who have not handled being called out about how many Black creators they are involved with, have not handled that well, and that's Book of the Month. And the Black community sees you, and we will remember those companies which showed their support, or who even stepped up and said, like, hey, you know what, you're absolutely right. We're going to try to change to ensure that we include more of you, more of your voices in going forward, But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I had to say. I was actually going to shoot my TBR video, but I felt I had to say this. I was going to say something really short, 17 minutes into the video. But I really don't can't really say anything else. It's just, I hope one day that I don't end up like George Floyd, that I will get to live out my life without it ending in, and I'm just another name on the list of people who've been murdered by the police, or murdered by some white supremacist or something, All you can do really, all I'm going to do really is like I said, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to keep living my life, do what I can to make the world a better place, and hope that if I decide to have kids, or they decide to have kids, that the world that I leave them will be one where Black lives do matter, and where we don't have to go protest in order to show that we care, or to show, or to demand the Indian respect that should be already given to us. So that's it for this video. I am going to put links down in the description box where you can go donate, sign petitions. I'm also going to link videos from my fellow Black booktubers talking about their experience on Booktube. And so you can see what they have to say. I say listen to their voices, see what they go through, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to support them or not, but at least like hear them out, because honestly, a lot of times people of color, Black people, voice their opinion is like shouting to the void, because you're either gaslit and you're told that you're crazy and it's not an issue, or you're just completely ignored. So definitely go listen to what they have to say. Look at their channel, see if there's something that you would like. If it is, subscribe, like, and support Black Lives Matter, and the rights and human dignity that we all deserve. So that's it for this video. As always, keep reading, and Black Lives Matter.